lap on that rocking chair that's in the bedroom that
Okay.
he had repaired for me.
Yeah.
And he was singing songs to me from the time I was a little. That's what I remember.
What would he sing? Do you remember one song? Just the names?
Oh, all the songs that were popular at the time. I can't remember the names of the songs.
Okay.
right
Well, if
now.
you did, you tell me.
But you name any of the old time songs, and those are what he sang. Just they weren't lullabies or anything
No,
like
just-
that. They were just, you know, Alexander's Ragtime Band.
Yeah.
I'll be down to get you in a taxi. And
That had to be fun. I bet you learned how to sing those when you were really.
well, I was listening. I
Yeah.
sure listened, and then
Yeah.
I learned all them. Somehow, when I got older, I knew all the words from listening to him.
Did he do not poems? Was it rhymes or poems he used to do? Did he do those too?
What those
Like recite Hiawatha, things like that.
Not Hiawatha, 'twas brillig and the something, something, something. He would do those things. Yeah,
So before bed?
because he was a public speaker in school himself. He liked to do that. Yeah, and he would lay down in bed with me when I'd go to sleep, and I would tell him everything that happened for the whole day, and he'd lay there and listen to me.
Oh.
Every night it was the same ritual. And Grandma was snoring away.
And did you think you'd always want to do that?
Always.
Did you tell him?
I told him, yes, I told him I'm going to do this for all my life. I'm always going to tell you everything. And he said, one day you won't. And you'll see, you'll get to a point where you won't want to. And when that day came, it was very easy for me not to tell him.
Oh.
So it worked out.
Do you remember how old you were when that happened?
I was close to a teenager.
Were you? That's.
I was pretty old. Maybe 11, something like that, 12.
And what else back then? What else do you remember vividly when
What
you
do
were
I-
young?
What do I remember?
Vividly when you were young.
About my relationship with my parents, or what?
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with my dad and mother. You know, they were around a lot. And at night we used to make fudge. Yes, my dad and I. We would get hungry and he would go make, or he would run to the store and get ice cream.
Mm.
It was big treats. Those are the things I remember.
Well, that's good. What was
That's
the
all.
favorite kind of ice cream that you liked to have then?
Anything chocolate. And we'd listen to the radio and he'd hop up on the chair and pretend he's the Lone Ranger.
Oh.
Io Silver away. See, I remember him a lot in my youth. And of course, the first 6 years of my life, I was a sickly child.
What did you
those
have?
years are kind of vague. I started out with double pneumonia when I was an infant, and then ended up with mumps meningitis when I was 6 years old.
Mm.
I think I lived at my grandmother's house for a while they moved away from the lake to West Rogers Park.
Why did you live with her then?
Well, they were moving,
Oh.
and I was recuperating. And I remember my mother coming to see me there all the time. And she had on a satin blouse with accordion pleats on the sleeves
Oh.
that I used to play with when she would come and sit with me. Yeah.
Is that the first house you remember then when you moved to West Rogers Park? Is that the first house you remember?
I remember all of No, I remember.
So where was the first one?
On Sheridan Road. Right near Evanston where the turn is. We had a big apartment over there. Then we moved to Washington. And it was fun over there.
Which one did you like
That's
the
when
best?
I went to the field house and took dancing lessons, tapping,
How old were you?
acrobatics. Well, I had to be under 10 because we moved away from there when I was 10. So say I was 7 or 8. I met my first girlfriend, Josephine Hartenstein. She and I were the best pals.
Oh,
We did everything together.
you were in grade school together?
Yeah. And then from there we moved to Glen Lake, which you remember,
Mm-hmm. How old were you
where
when
they
you
lived for 42 years.
How old were you when you
10.
moved? 10?
I was 10 years old when we moved there.
Which was your favorite house?
Glen Lake. Those were the best memories. We lived about a block away from the lake, and I was going to go to a school that had a swimming pool, and I didn't know how to swim. So my dad and your grandpa and Uncle Jerry and the lifeguard at the beach at the end of the street, every street end had a beach
Okay.
right where we lived.
Mm-hmm.
And the lifeguard at the beach, Jerry and my dad, taught me how to swim that summer so that when I went to school I wouldn't feel like a complete jerk
Oh.
not knowing how to swim. And when I got to school, here was my friend Edie and I were the only two that knew how to swim. Nobody else did.
So the grammar school had a pool,
In a pool.
and they
Swift
taught
school.
everybody how to swim.
Yeah. But I knew when I got there, so I didn't have to worry. I was worried that I wouldn't know, And those were good years.
So you met a lot of your friends that you kept through life at
Yes,
Swift.
yes. Yeah. Good friends. And then we had a Gabby Girls Club then.
And who was in that?
Gertie, Althea, Edie, Elaine. Barbara's in the middle for the B. G-A-B-E-E.
For everybody's initial, was
First
it?
letter, the Gabby Girls. And what we did, don't ask me.
You don't know?
We just had fun. We'd get together. I kind of only remember being at my house. It seems like people gravitated there because of Grandma and Grandpa.
Yeah. So you would meet once a week?
Mm-hmm.
And what
So,
would you
and then they would bring people in, and we would dance and have fun. I don't know what we did. Don't
How old were you for that one? How old was that?
we were about 11 or 12. And it went on, and that's when they came in. Gertie brought Nay in, and they came in then.
Oh.
And that's when we became friends.
And what do you remember about your brother when you were growing up? Anything special?
Lots of things. Yeah.
Like,
Fights.
what would he do to you?
He'd go like this to me, and I would get so mad. He would put his hand out while I would be swinging at him, and I couldn't get at him. He was a good guy, though.
But what were the good things?
The good things before we moved to Glen Lake, I think on Thursdays, Ella's Maid's Night Out, Grandma and Grandpa would go to the opera.
So they had a maid.
Yeah, Grandma and Grandpa would go to the opera, and Jerry would take me down to Dimitri's barbecue place.
Oh.
It was on the turn at Sheridan Road, and they had the most delicious. I can remember that chicken on white bread with barbecue sauce. We would have that every Thursday. He would take me there. And Grandma and Grandpa would go to the opera, and Grandma would sleep. Well, Grandpa enjoyed this. Those are the stories I heard.
Oh, how funny.
And they did a lot of partying then.
Did he wear a top hat and tails? Was it like that or no for the opera?
I don't remember that. I don't know.
So you don't remember them getting dressed up?
I think so. I think I remember her getting dressed up, but I don't remember anything about it. They had a really fun life, the two of them.
Did they?
together.
They went out all the time?
Went out and everything. And then, but by the time I needed them, when I was in high school, they were home all the time.
They were.
Sometime.
So back in the late 20s, mid 30s during the Depression, what do you remember about those years?
You know, that's when, well, I was born in 1924. And did I tell you that I was sickly for those first 6 years?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I really don't remember much about
But the
that.
Depression went on through the 30s, didn't it?
Yes, I suppose, but I didn't know anything about that at the time.
You didn't see your life change at all, or your lifestyle
No, we
change?
moved from this big apartment to a was a lovely apartment, but a different area.
Was it smaller?
A little bit smaller, but not that much. It still was big, 3 bedrooms. It was still a lovely, lovely apartment. And, yeah, I did dancing then. I liked that.
Did Grandpa have a car then?
He had a Studebaker, that's what I remember. First he had a Cadillac with the seats that pulled down in the back, like a taxi cab. I remember that when we lived on Sheridan Road. And then we had the Studebaker with a rumble seat. Jerry and I sat in the back and had a good time when we would travel any place.
So that would hold 4 people, is that into the
That's
car?
all. And then there was no car. I didn't know why or anything about it.
Is that when you moved though?
After when we moved to Washington.
And did you still have the maid?
Have what?
Your maid when you moved, your maid?
No.
So then things did change, you just
Things changed, but I
noticed
paid no attention.
it. Yeah, didn't really affect you that much.
No, because people didn't talk about their personal problems or personal things. Well, my family didn't anyway at that time. They never did.
You never heard anything. What did Grandpa do?
He worked for a rod mill, and I think that's when they were doing very well. And then the rod mill moved to the East Coast. Grandma didn't want to leave her family. They wanted him to go. And
Well, what kind of a company was there?
they made steel something. It had to do with steel rods or something like that. I really don't know. And he didn't want to go. I mean, he wanted to go, but she didn't want to leave her family. So then, I don't know what, he went into business for himself, into the, I think, cosmetic or something like that for a while, and then he went into the foot art support business. I think with his brother.
They started it together?
Uncle Mark. And then we lived there till I was 10 years old. Then we moved to Wembley, where they lived for 42 years in an apartment. Can you imagine? In an apartment for 42 years? But those were the best times. I remember that. That seems like the longest time of my life. And it was such a short, did it seem like that to you? Your high school years and days were long, those times were the longest times? And you always kind of revert back to those days? And still, it's such a short time of your life.
What did you like about it the best, though? I mean, you have such good memories about it. Something's got to feel good.
What, meeting your dad?
Yeah?
Yeah,
How old
sure.
were you when you
In high
met him?
school.
Yeah.
I was a sophomore, and he was a sophomore.
Did he come up to you?
We were in the same Spanish class, yes, and and then we started going out together.
Did he notice you?
Yes.
How did he approach you, knowing him?
And he came over to our house. Well, I think I told you that story. And then when Jerry and his friends were playing cards, and my parents were out that night, and he and some of the fellows that were on the high school football team, the sophomore sluggers, came over, and Jerry would question them about what they did when he found out they were football players. Well, then he let me go out with them as I can. And he was right. Yeah.
But he came over before you knew he was interested in
Oh,
you?
no. I knew him. He would walk out of class with me. We would talk as we walked out of class all the time. And then he called and asked me out.
Did you have to get permission first?
Yeah, I could just go. I had to ask.
And Grandpa let you go?
Grandpa let me go, but one time he wanted to take me to a dance, and Grandpa didn't like the idea. He thought I was going to the Aragon Ballroom or something, which a lot of people went to, which was very nice. But I didn't know anything about it. He didn't think I should go to a dance like that.
Why?
I don't know. That's the way it was in those days. And it turned out to be a temple dance that he was taking me to. So then it was all right, I could go.
And Grandma had anything to say about it
Mostly
ever?
Grandpa did all the things with me. I don't know why, but that's the way it was.
Mhm. So if you needed permission, you never went to
Because Grandma was like a little girl herself.
Oh.
He took care of her too. He took care of everybody.
So you didn't ever ask her if you could go someplace or do something?
Well, if I did, she'd say, you know, I would have to talk to him too, so
Oh,
it's all right.
what did she do all day long?
Oh, she had her friends that she saw, you know, Sisters of the Skillet, remember that? But that was from before.
Well, what was
that
that?
These four women used to get together in the afternoon. I think they had their little cocktails in the afternoon. Yeah,
And they
had a
called
good time.
themselves
She had a good time,
sisters?
but, you know, I didn't know. I don't know, I was a very uncurious child. Strange, but I was.
Were all your friends like that? Maybe all your friends back that way were like that too.
I don't, oh, well, yeah, they say that, you know, the water seeks its own level. The friends I had, I don't know.
Did you always have help, domestic help, until the
Yes.
Depression?
No, because, well, the Depression I don't remember really.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So there was always somebody to take care
And
of
when
you?
we did, yes. When we didn't have anybody every day, then she would have somebody once a week to come in at least.
To watch you or to clean house?
Oh, to watch me, no, I don't remember that. You know, I don't even remember being watched or who was home or anything like that. So she must have been home.
Well, your aunts and uncles came over a
I
lot?
think I was kind of demented or something.
No. You were just well taken care of, that's all.
Yes, I was very comfortable.
You have a lot of family
Oh, a lot
around?
of family. Yes, I loved it. A lot of family. My mother had a lot of sisters, a couple of brothers. 4 sisters and 2 brothers. My dad had a big family, 10 boys and 2 girls. But we didn't see as much of them. There were about 4 of the brothers that we saw a lot.
They all lived in the area?
Mhm.
And you didn't see the other ones?
They might have, you know, they were older. My dad was one of the youngest of all those, so they might have, some of them had died. And, we'd see them on occasion. But I think he was friendly with just about 4 of them that they saw.
Did you see his sisters?
Yes, we would go to visit them. Little tiny ladies. One of my aunts made rock candy.
Oh, which one was that?
Aunt Dora. It was a little miniature of my father. They all looked exactly
also
alike.
little?
In fact, I used to call them 7 dwarfs. I had a name for each one of them.
Oh, which was which?
They all related to each one.
Yeah, but do you remember which was which? No?
No, I mean, I could think about it, but
Which was Grumpy? I can't see any of them as being Grumpy.
no, I can't either. Wait a minute, I don't remember.
Dopey?
Probably one I never saw that much. Dopey was, I thought, Uncle Harold. Sneezy was Uncle Mark because he had allergies.
Oh, funny.
And
Bashful?
Doc was Uncle Perry because he was a podiatrist.
Who was?
You know, so they all had a name.
Who was Bashful?
Oh, Uncle Herman. You remember Uncle Herman in
Yeah.
California? Yeah, remember?
Yeah.
So they suited these names for
Oh,
some reason.
cute.
Yeah. Anyway, I have pleasant memories of my childhood. I just don't, I wish that I would have asked more questions than I did. I had to get old before I realized I wanted to know certain things. I was just too content, probably.
That's okay. Who was around the most? So Grandma's family?
Yes.
Her sisters or your grandmother?
Her sisters and my grandma. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite?
Of all the aunts. They all were different. I think I loved them all.
What did you like? What did you like the best about Aunt Pearl?
She was always there. You could count on her to have gum in her purse.
Yeah.
You know,
And Aunt Toots.
Aunt Toots, she was fun. Yeah, she was lots of fun. And of course she had a son, Lee, he was more like my brother than cousin because he was around all the time. They lived just a block away.
And she worked?
She worked. And
What
he
did
would-
she do?
She made hats. She was she worked for a millinery company. And she worked for the Fair department store, and she used to make hats in the department that she worked in for people. They would come in, and she would put a hat together for them.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. In fact, she was on the radio. I remember running home from school one day to listen to her on the radio talking about it.
Oh.
Because she was quite an enterprising woman.
That had to be different for that time. I mean, that
Really?
couldn't have been totally accepted.
Right.
At that
right,
time.
Right.
What about Aunt Ray?
I didn't know her that well. But she was a nice lady. They were all nice ladies. They were all sweet.
So Aunt Ray and Uncle Jesse, what
They were the intellects. They lived a different style of life. They went with Clarence Darrow. Uncle Jesse was a lawyer, I think, and Clarence Darrow and their groups used to meet in the middle of, at 10 o'clock at night. They would meet at a cafeteria downtown. I can't think of the name of it right now. And they would talk all night until wee hours of the morning, then come home and go to sleep. So their hours were completely different than anybody else's. He didn't work.
Oh, he
Because
did.
he was a Manischewitz. He was from the Manischewitz family. I guess he had an income from that or something. I don't know exactly what it was.
So would you compare them to the ultra liberals of today, pretty much?
Yes, he wrote books on the overpopulation of the world, and this was maybe the 1920s. I have the book on the shelf. Did you know that? I'll
No.
show you.
Was he a soapbox?
He
guy?
wore shoes, high-top shoes.
I remember
with a
those.
black- You remember
I
him?
remember those.
Oh, do you remember meeting him?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Oh, yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But would
And
he
long
give
hair?
speeches? Oh, yeah.
Long white hair. Yes. And what?
In a suit. Always in a suit, dark blue suit.
Right.
Would he give
They
speeches
were a lovely
in the
couple. I
park?
wish I had known them better.
Yeah.
I really didn't know them that well.
Well, they probably kept to themselves more. Probably the rest of the world was too frivolous.
Mhm.
They were more serious. And the boys, Uncle Julie?
He was lots of fun. Yeah. It was a nice family.
Uncle Max?
I
Didn't
miss
see
them.
much of him.
No, not too much. But we saw him on occasion. Saw him on occasion.
Did Uncle Julie work?
Well, I remember. Yes. He was. He worked for the telephone company, and then he worked for a hearing aid company, and then he worked for Francis Heffernan.
So what did he do?
Oh, I think he handled the petty cash.
Very well.
I'm not really sure what he did down there at the store. He was the goodwill ambassador, I think.
Yeah. But nobody had children outside of
Yeah. On my mother's side was
Aunt
Aunt
Toots.
Toots,
And on your father's side?
the two girls had children, and two of the men. That's all.
Oh.
So I had 4 cousins. I had Uncle Alex was the youngest brother, and they had 4 children. And then another brother, Uncle Louis, had 1 daughter. She died very young in childbirth because she became Christian Science, and she didn't go to a doctor, is what I heard. And then the sisters' sons were much older than I was, but when we would get together for family reunions, they called it Sarah's Sons. That was my grandmother's name.
Oh.
My father's mother's name was Sarah. And they called it Sarah's Sons, and they would get together. And that's when I would see the family.
But you never knew your grandmother on your father's
No, I
side.
didn't. I was about 5 years old when she died, and I don't remember her.
And where was she from?
I remember her from those meetings, see. She was from Poland, I believe.
And your grandfather's name was?
Abraham.
And he was from Poland also?
I believe so, yes. Yes.
And your mother's,
My mother's family was from Russia.
it was Bessie?
Bessie and Charles.
And what did
My
you
grandfathers died when they were in their 40s. I never knew them. I never had a grandfather.
And did you know what they did for a living?
I don't know what my father's father did. Isn't that strange? Nobody talked in those days. We were talking about that before. I think they were immigrant families that had come over, and I think that I actually think that the children were embarrassed because their parents didn't speak proper English. And so nothing was ever said, and I wasn't really that inquisitive to even ask a question.
What do you think your grandfather did?
My mother's father, I think, had a tavern.
And did your grandmother speak English?
My grandmother, yes, she had a lovely, high-pitched voice. And she looked like a queen. Everybody thought she was came from royalty. That's what she looked like. But from the time I remember her until the day she died, she looked the same. She never changed. Her hair was always white, pulled up in a bun. And she always looked the same. She was a very sweet lady. She lived with Aunt Pearl and grandmother.
She always lived with her?
To be continued?
Can you tell me about where you lived when you were a child? Start with the first place you remember living.
The first place I remember living was on Sheridan Road, up near Evanston, right at the turn, you know. We had a nice big apartment there, and it was, now they're gonna be working back here. You better turn it off.
That's okay.
Yeah. Ah! Ah! Stop barking. It's gonna make him crazy.
Were you-
Okay,
were you
so we
right on
lived
the
on Sheridan Road until I was 8 years old, and then we moved to Washtenaw.
No.
And why did you move?
Sit.
Why did we move?
Sit.
Well, I guess I was a
Sit.
sickly child and wanted to get away from the lake,
Sit.
and
Sit.
the doctor thought it might help. Because
Sit.
that's when I had most meningitis. And I was sick and went to live with my grandmother in the interim. And then we moved to Washtenaw. And I enjoyed that so much.
What was that apartment like?
Beautiful big apartment.
Can you describe it?
It had a big foyer and a step-down living room, and we used to play stage. You know, you could perform on the stage. Big living room. And what was it? 3 bedrooms, breakfast room, beautiful tile bathroom. It was a lovely apartment. And that was probably during the Depression. It was a beautiful neighborhood. It was like Grandpa used to say, when State Street was a prairie, indicating time long agone. And I could say when Devon was a prairie. It was that area. Same thing. And what else do you want to know?
How long were you there?
We're in
Washtenaw.
Oh, we lived there till I was 10, and we moved to Glen Lake. Where
So
Grandma
that
and Grandpa lived on Glen Lake for 42 years.
so that was all Depression era when you were in
Yes,
Washtenaw.
yes, right.
Do you remember anything about the Depression?
No, I don't. In retrospect, I can think about things that happened.
So what happened?
We had a car, then we didn't have a car. We were living here, then we were living there. But nobody ever discussed it. I mean, the family didn't talk about it. And I never was in want for anything.
So your lifestyle, you didn't
Well,
feel
no,
changed.
I had no idea there was a depression until I went to school.
So how did you? Oh, how
I
did?
did school.
Oh, in school.
Talked about it.
What about any unusual circumstances?
Like,
like people coming to your door,
Oh, yes.
begging,
Yeah,
or
oh, yeah.
people selling things? So what did you see? What
My
happened?
mom would make sandwiches and they would come to the door asking for food. Yeah. And she'd make sandwiches. They would sit on the porch and eat. In those days, too, we had men going up and down the alleys singing Rags of Iron, and they would buy all your, whatever they could get from you. And they were probably very wealthy people at that time, but who knew? And then I remember the last of the, no, that was when you were little, when I'm thinking of the last of the horses in the milk carts, right? You remember
Yeah,
that horse.
right. What about the organ grinders?
Organ grinders with the little monkeys would come in the backyards and we'd throw pennies down. Pennies, can you imagine? Yeah. But that was all entertainment. Little did we realize these people were coming around trying to earn a living. You know,
Yeah.
we didn't associate that with that. And there it is. It's on now. Anyway, as far as Washtenaw is concerned, it was a very nice time of my life. I had my first good girlfriend, best girlfriend, Josephine Hardenstein. She and I were best pals. And the neighborhood was nice. There was a big park district right where we lived. Field house. I took dancing lessons there. And at night we would all go outside. All ages would meet on the stoops outside. And play ball and talk. And I would listen to the big kids' conversation. Very educational.
So how big were what was the age difference?
She and I were probably the youngest, some of the youngest. And then they went up to high school kids. They would come out and sit outside.
So all the different age groups got along.
It was fun. It was really nice. I enjoyed it. And then we moved to, did I tell you? We moved to Glenwood, yes.
How old were you?
I was 10, and I knew I was going to a school that had a swimming pool. I was really embarrassed because here I was 10 years old and I didn't know how to swim. So my brother, who was a lifeguard, and my father, oh no, Jerry was still in high school. He wasn't a lifeguard yet, but he was a good swimmer. My dad was a good swimmer, and the lifeguard at the beach at the end of the street took me in hand and taught me how to swim in it summer. And when I got to school, I wasn't nervous about getting into the pool and discovered that there were only 2 of us that knew how to swim. Nobody else did. That was a swimming class.
So your grammar
it
school,
was a funny experience.
your grade school had a swimming pool. That's
Yes.
very unusual.
Well, it was over near the lake. Perhaps that's why. I don't know. Yeah.
So what would you do in the summer? Did you have good summer
Wonderful
memories
summers.
too?
I would go to the beach every single day. The end of the street, end of every street at that time had beaches. Had big homes on Sheridan Road on both sides of the street. Of course, now there are high-rises. It's completely different. It was a lovely neighborhood at first.
And did your aunt have a cottage in the summer you'd go to?
I went to, yes. I went to Michigan, spent a summer there with her and her husband, and Aunt and Uncle Bob. And I enjoyed that really. She had a cottage on the lake. Little Pine Island Lake in Michigan. I haven't thought of that in years.
So you swam there?
Constantly. You swim out to a raft with a diving board on it. You know, it was like a raft. And I spent the whole day there.
Well, you spent more than a day. Oh, just
I mean, out in
yeah,
the water
yeah.
the whole day.
And did they have a dog?
Yeah, they had a little dog, Mickey.
And what happened with
He was a
Mickey?
little terrier. Yes, I enjoyed him. And he came back to. We took care of him one year after that. And what happened? We ended up getting rabies shots. Jerry, Lee, and I think the poor dog. I don't know if he had rabies or not. I remember.
Did he bite you?
We had scratches and we're playing with. I guess he did. They discovered that he did, and so I don't know who came to our house. The health department? Is that who comes? And, at the time I was wearing a cast because my muscles were pulling my bones, or bones were pulling the muscles. I was growing too fast, and I had a cast that came around here and up my whole back, and it was scooped out here, of course.
Oh,
And everybody got the shots in the stomach. I couldn't get them there, so they gave them to me in the thighs, which were less painful.
but did they hurt?
They were very painful shots, and we had to have them every day. I think for 14 days, if I remember correctly. They came, and they, get like hard lumps there.
Oh,
But I felt sorry for the guys. They had to have them in the stomach. Isn't that crazy? I think they still do that with rabies shots.
oh.
Anyway, didn't make me not like dogs.
No.
I still love that little dog. And
So that was your mother's oldest sister, Aunt Ann.
Aunt
Was
Ann
she the
was,
oldest
yes.
one?
Pardon?
She was the oldest?
She was the oldest. There was Ann and Ray and Max and Lily, that's my mama, Julie, Pearl, and Tootsie.
And where did your parents come from?
My mother's family came from Russia, and my dad's family came from Poland.
And then where,
They settled in, my dad's family settled in Buffalo for a while, and mother's family settled in Cincinnati for a while. And then eventually they came to Chicago and met.
do you know how they met?
I'm not quite sure how they met. I think she had a girlfriend, Sally Heffernan, who introduced her to Grandpa. And then her brother Julie, Uncle Julie, married Sally's sister, Frances Heffernan. That's interesting.
It is. And do you know what your grandparents
And
did?
that's a lot of information from my family.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't curious enough to ask questions, and they didn't discuss their past. So,
Were you close to your grandmother?
like I said, I was sickly the first few years of my life. Got closer to her as I got older. Yeah,
Did she speak English?
yes, with a lovely accent, and she looked like a queen. She was a beautiful woman. People always thought she was queenly looking, and she was.
And did Grandpa ever talk about her when he was courting Grandma? Did he ever have stories about
About
his
the family when
mother-in-law?
he would go
Yes.
over. He would go over to their house and say if he didn't bring the eggs and the beans, they wouldn't eat. And she'd laugh. He was always, fooling with her. It was a happy family we came from, a very happy family. That's what I remember. Pleasantness.
That's good. So what were some of the happy things that...
Just being together with everybody, listening to I enjoy listening in on conversations, and it was.
Would they all get together when you were younger?
Yeah, they'd get together, and my father had 10 brothers, 2 sisters, or 9 brothers and 2 sisters, and of course they were ranged in age from. Dad was one of the youngest, so I didn't know some of the older ones that passed away by the time I was going up. But Uncle Mark and Uncle Perry and Uncle Harold used to come to the house, and Grandpa and the 4 of them would sing barbershop quartet, and they really were good. Grandma would play the piano. It was a lot of music in the house.
And you and Jerry would sing too?
And then Jerry would get older, and he played the guitar, and then I would sing. And it was fun.
Yeah.
Pleasant things. Ask me some more. I can't.
Did
Dead
how
space.
did Grandma feel about Grandpa's family? Or his mother was alive when they first...
I think
Yeah.
they lived with them when they first got married at the very beginning. And Grandma, here's one story that she told. She scrubbed the floor she never scrubbed a floor in her life, but she scrubbed the floor for I guess, Grandma Saperston.
for her mother-in-law.
And she felt so bad. She gave she gave my mother money to go buy shoes. That was her reward for doing it before. She felt badly that she had found out she had never scrubbed a floor before.
Oh, did she ask her to do it? Was that
I
it?
think she might have, probably. I can't imagine my mother found out she needed to scrub a floor.
Grandma wasn't the floor scrubbing type.
No.
Did she have maids all
She
her
was-
life?
Yes. Yeah. But, you know, people did in those days. A lot of people did.
Yeah.
I think even...
So it wasn't to take care of you and Jerry, it was to do the housework? It was to do that too? And what did she do?
See, Jerry was 6 years older than I was, and he lived with, I mean, I think when they got an apartment, the grandma and her family lived upstairs. They lived in the same building, if I remember correctly. And so, or very near each other. And so Jerry had the opportunity of spending time with his grandmother when he was little, in April. He was close to them. But I started out with with double pneumonia when I was first born. I was little. And ended up at around 6 years old with mumps meningitis and all the other diseases in between the childhood disease. So, you know, it's kind of a fragile child, I suppose.
Did you go to kindergarten?
I never went to kindergarten. I think the sickness had something to do with it. I don't know. I didn't feel sickly or anything like that. This is all in retrospect. I know.
Do you remember your first day of school?
But very bewildering because I had no experiences to come from. Yeah. And but as time went on, I got used to it.
Did you not like going at the beginning? Did it make
It
you?
made me nervous at first.
Yeah.
Remember? How about you?
So when you were younger, things that we take for granted today, like our telephones, refrigerators.
We had an ice box when I was little.
So can you describe that for the younger
It was in the
generation?
pantry and the back was open. And then off of the porch there was a door that opened up to this opening in the back of the icebox. And the icemen would come with their trucks and they'd grab great big tongs and grab the ice and put it on their backs. Also, they would give us chunks of ice
Oh,
to suck on it. It was hot out, you know, it was nice. And they'd carry them up to the door, open the door, shove it in, and that's how we were refrigerated in those days.
so it kept everything cool, just one piece of ice. was
One
there.
big block, huge big block of ice.
And it would then melt, and then they would bring more. Is that-
Evidently,
Yeah. Were the ice boxes big?
That was no, I don't remember, you know.
But there was no freezer
Like-
section.
Oh, no, no.
So if you
That's
wanted
all they
ice
had.
cream, what would
Oh,
you
you
do?
go to the store to get it. That was a big treat. Grandpa would go down and buy a quart of ice cream and we would eat it.
You have to eat it all at once.
Sure.
Yeah. And what about the telephone? What was the telephone like?
Oh, they had nickel boxes for telephones in the homes at that time. In our home anyway. Unless you had a nickel or a slug, you couldn't make a call.
So it was connected to the telephone?
It was a separate box on the wall, and you drop a nickel in. And then every month the telephone man would come, and he would take the box and dump it on the table, dining room table, and like he'd have the little papers already and go like this. It was fascinating to watch them sort them in, you know, so many nickels in a packet, sort them together.
And that's how you paid
And if
for
you had
them?
slugs, you looked for the slugs. Or I don't know about billing or anything at that time, but I'm sure they must have charged more, or charged you something to do that, I'm sure, plus the money on the phones.
And how was your milk delivered?
Well, that milk, butter, eggs came, the milkman would come.
And he had a horse?
carts, and then but that was for a long time. Then they went into the motorized vehicles.
So the Icemen, did they come with horses too, or?
I don't think so. I think they came in trucks. So where am I now? How old am I?
Oh, there's
10 years old. Then there was a group of us that started a club.
How old were
We
you with
called
that?
the Gabby Girls. Gertrude, Althea, Barbara, Edith, and Elaine. Yeah, G-A-B-E-E. And it was a club where we would get together. I think it was mostly at my house. Because Grandma and Grandpa was the kind of people that welcomed kids into the home.
So you had kids together a lot, yeah.
And it was fun. And they would all bring people into it. Don't ask me what we did. We had fun. We danced and we, I don't know what, ate and listened to records, you know.
Now, as far as.
And then
Yeah.
Gert brought May in, Aunt May. And that's how we met.
So you were how old when you met with her?
We met, I think we were about 8th grade, but we became good friends when we started high school. She and I became really good friends.
Didn't she live with you for a while?
Well, that was later on. After we graduated high school.
Oh, it was.
And when she started going with Marshall, and we started going together. Four of us went through high school together.
So you've
With
known
other
her for
people.
all those, how many years have you been friends?
You count them? What would that be? Well, 12 years old, so maybe.
Over 60 years, over 65 years, long time.
68 years. Oh, gee. I remember when I used to go shopping with my mother and she would meet somebody downtown. And she'd say, gee, we had been friends for 25 years. Goodness.
It was like a long
And
time.
are they old?
So for
Baby, look at me now.
for entertainment at night, what did you have at night?
Radio. We had the radio at night for entertainment.
And was that really something you looked forward to?
Oh, definitely. I used to run home from school to listen to Little Orphan Annie. She had a decoding ring. Did you ever have that when you
No.
did something? And you would decode the messages like drink Ovaltine. Something silly like that. But it was fun.
So it was on the same time every day, that was, and then what other
15-minute
program?
programs.
15 minutes, that's all they were?
I remember Little Orphan Annie after school. I can't remember any other ones.
What about at
Leaving
night?
the Lone Ranger and then of course the Jack Benny shows, the comedies. We'd sit around the radio and just picture what we were listening to. I remember laying on the floor and looking at the carpeting and associating the carpeting patterns, you know. And the legs of the cocktail table had animals on them. I remember those, just laying there, listening to the radio.
Did you all listen to the same show?
Buck
You all liked
Humphrey.
the same show?
I don't remember any watch.
Listen.
I don't remember any, confrontation of the program.
So were there a lot of programs on at the same time? You would turn one station or
Network
another?
stations, just like we have today. The networks.
Were there any scary ones?
Yeah, Inner Sanctum. That was on later and I was older for those. And it's on now in the middle of the night if you want to tune in your radio. I can listen to it, but it's just scary for me now.
So would Grandma and Grandpa listen with you? Or was it just
Yes,
you and
they're
Jerry?
mostly Grandpa. Well, Jerry was older. He was 6 years older than I was, so I was almost like an only child. A lot of the times.
Do you
The
remember?
older I got, the closer we got.
Do you remember anything as children interacting or any special events
Yes,
with him?
I do remember something. We were playing, we must have seen a cowboy movie or something, and I shot him with a toy gun and he laid on the floor. And he pretended as though he were dead, and I believed he was. I thought I shot him. And he made me frantic until he finally got up and like a boy would do, you know, a typical boy. That I remember.
Did you ever?
I also remember getting angry with him, and he'd hold his hand out like this, and I would be flailing my arms trying to get at him. Of course, my parents thought we were wonderful children. We never fought, of course.
So you
No.
never got in trouble as a child,
Together? No.
or by yourself?
Got in trouble.
Did you ever get
Yes,
punished?
when I was, this is when I was little. What would I be? I was under second grade, because we still lived on shared room. I had a beautiful party dress. It was pink with accordion pleats and ruffles on the bottom and ruffles here. And I wanted to wear it to school, and my mother wouldn't let me. Grandpa had gone out. He was going to work. And he heard me hollering at her, and he came back in the house, and he took me in the bedroom, and he put me over his knee, and he spanked me all day long. He didn't even go to work. He just sat spanked me all day. And that's how I remembered it. That's the only time I ever, he never touched me again. Must have broken his heart. Imagine staying home all day to spank me.
Did you ever tell him that that's how you felt?
Yes, he didn't want to hear about it. I think from then on, it was always conversation. He was very easy. He was just wonderful. I could talk to him about anything, and it was always talking, always soft-spoken. I don't remember him ever raising his voice. I don't know what happened. He must have had a bad day that day. But that I remember.
How about Grandma? Did she ever discipline you?
Oh, we hollered at each other, but it was okay. You know, mother-daughter stuff. Yeah. I tried to be a good girl. I mean, I probably would have been called a nerd today.
I don't think so.
Probably.
Now,
I did what I wanted to do. It didn't matter to me what other people were doing. I just always was like that. Just did my own thing.
Now, when you were young, the domestic help you had, do you remember much about them, or were they kind of in
Only
the
that
background?
one of them made a play for Jerry and got fired.
So how old was she? Do you have any idea?
How old was she?
Was she like a teenager or an adult? Or?
She was young. And he was, I think, about 15. That would make me what? 10? Yes, because I think we lived on Glen Lake then. I'm not sure. Could have been Washtenaw, could have been a little bit earlier. He was between, like, say, 13 and 16 something in there maybe.
Do you
But
remember?
this is all retrospect. No,
Yeah.
I don't remember it happening at the time because I was that much younger than he was. But I remember the conversations about it later on. You know.
What did you remember hearing later on then?
Yeah, what happened? That she made a play for him.
And he
Do you
told.
think he got scared to death? I don't know. I don't know. I just can't tell you because I don't know.
Okay, so the war started when you were in high school or before high school?
High school.
Do you remember?
Definitely.
So
In
what
fact,
were you doing?
I was going with your father at the time, and we had gone to the movies. And we came home to my house.
Mhm.
And they were all around the radio listening. It was on a Sunday, I think. It's a Sunday. It was a Sunday. Yeah. And what was that, 41 was it?
Mhm.
That happened?
Mhm.
So we were juniors in high school.
Was everybody surprised with it, when this is a real
Shocked.
shock?
Absolutely shocked because the news, you didn't have information of things that were in the making, you know.
So if you didn't have a radio on at that time, there would be no way to know.
The newsboys used to come screaming on the streets with the
Oh.
newspapers and holler the headlines.
Oh.
Yes, I remember that, but I was younger then.
Mm-hmm. So how would people
Something-
call on the phone and tell you to turn on your radio? Is this how news was
Well, I suppose
passed?
so.
Yeah.
If you weren't listening, if you were listening to the radio, they would break in like they do today.
Okay, so let's go back to, all right, you're starting high school. When did you meet Dad? How old were you?
We were sophomores was in high school, we were in the same, excuse me, Spanish class. And we met.
Did you notice him in class?
Well, definitely,
Before.
who wouldn't notice him?
So what did he do? How did he make
Spanish class.
How did he make
If,
himself
you know,
known?
if he didn't know what the teacher was, she might have wanted to call on him for something, and if he didn't know what the answer was, he would ask her a question and get off on another subject. Oh dear, he was funny. He was a funny man in school. I mean, not clowny.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. Yeah. No, we met. We would walk out of class together, and
I remember he told the story once that he and his friend Buddy were sitting in the auditorium and you had a white sweater. Do you remember that story?
mhm.
How did that go?
Well, he told you that story, right?
Mhm.
That I walked down. Well, I walked in and he saw me and he liked what he saw. Thank goodness. The best moves of our lives, yes. And yeah, then we started going out. He was a big football star, and
Tell the funny story about did he have you in the car and he went to his house and one of his old girlfriends came over? Go into that story.
yes, Edie and I were sitting in the car. A friend of mine and I were sitting in the car where he had to go in the house for something. And another car pulled up, and this blonde girl, I knew he had gone with her before. And he was all of what when he was going with me, 15, 16? But he had gone with this girl before, and she went up to the door. And we don't know what happened. We were just sitting there, and I said, I bet that's so-and-so Pat, I think her name was, I bet, to Edie. And then she came out and got in the car and left. And I hear from, I don't know who, either Dad told us or his dad had gone to the door, and Dad and your father, my husband, was crawling around on the floor peeking out the windows. He didn't want to see her. He wanted that to be a past of his life. Funny.
It is funny. Do you know anything
Funny
about his
person.
childhood? Do you have any stories?
Yes, that one of his German shepherds saved his life. When
What
he was a
happened?
little boy.
What
He
happened?
fell in the lake.
Like
Grandma
Lake
Ann
Michigan?
used to tell that story, and the German shepherd dove in. But do you know what? I don't even know what the dog's name was. Because I don't know why. But anyway, he dove in and swam in and pulled him out. Saved his life.
Do you know how
What
old
else
he
do I
was?
know about his childhood?
How about
They
his,
used to go to South Haven for the summer.
how about his pet chicken?
His what?
Pet chicken? His pet chicken when he lived.
I don't know about that. That wasn't his pet chicken. I don't know.
Do you remember what happened to it?
I think it was his grandmother's.
Was it just, maybe he just played with it?
I don't know. Did they cook it and have it for dinner or something? You know Dad with his funny stories.
That he came home one day and all of a sudden the chicken was gone and they were having chicken for dinner?
He did want to eat it out there. I just kind of remember that.
What were his parents like?
You know his parents.
Yes, but I want to hear his first meeting, his parents when you were
When I met them,
young.
they were very nice to me.
Do you know where they were
Welcoming.
from?
They were from Hungary. Not they. His grandparents came over from Hungary.
On Grandma Ann's side.
Yes, on Grandpa Harry's side, I don't really know that much. I don't know anything. He had two brothers that I know about them. But, you know, we didn't talk about our history then. I wish we did.
Well, what did his father
so-
do? What is the job?
Grandpa Harry, he was a haberdasher. He worked in a very fine store downtown. First, he was a traveling salesman. I forgot that. That was it. He traveled a lot, and he lost his job. And then he went to work for this place downtown. That's where it was.
So it was men's clothing?
Sorry?
Men's clothing
Men's
store?
clothing, very nice place. Yes. It was well known in those days.
What did Grandma do? Was she just home?
Grandma Ann worked here, there, and everywhere. In the
Did she work when Dad was growing up?
I don't think so. Women didn't work then. I don't think. Of course, some women did. Yes.
So tell me some stories about when you dated. Your first date.
Our first date. Oh, we went to this. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we went to the temple dance. I
Did your
remember he asked
father
me to
and
go to
mother
one-
let you go?
Yes, and he asked me to go to a dance, and Grandpa was only thinking in terms of like the Aragon or something, ballroom, and he didn't want me to go there. I don't know why, I don't understand what was going on. But when he found out it was a temple, and he said it was okay to go. And since then, I talked to so many people that, in my older years, that spent a lot of time in those ballrooms, so I can't imagine why. Maybe it was, I don't know.
Maybe it was different in his era.
In his idea, yeah. And
Was he on time to pick you up?
he was late. He was always late. But I must have known something was there. I don't know why I waited, but I did.
Wasn't he pretty late the first date?
Yes, very late.
Why?
Probably an hour late or something like
Do you know why?
that. Oh, he was working as a produce. Oh, that was it. He had a job at the A&P in the produce department. And he thought if he told me he had to work late, I wouldn't go out with him. This was his logic. So he just told me he'd pick me up at such a time and then just came late. So, and he was right, it worked. Yeah,
Do you remember
we
any
had
more?
lots of laughs.
Yeah. Anything else that stands out in your dating?
Friday nights we used to get on the bus and drive downtown and around, and back up north and back, do the whole circuit. And we'd sit on the bus and talk the whole time.
Now, if you went out on other dates, weren't nightclubs different? Couldn't you get in as as
We
young
would go to
adults?
nightclubs and order milk.
And so there would be entertainment and
Entertainment, dancing.
Did you
They
see
would
any-
have bands, big bands would come around that we want to see. They were at nightclubs. That's where they would perform.
And you could get in as a
Oh,
young
yes.
person.
We could go.
And who did you see? Do you remember seeing special any big bands? That were,
Sure.
Who did you see?
We saw Glenn Miller at one time. Benny Goodman. Those two big bands. Like the kids see your shows.
So it's a
The
cover
arenas.
charge to get in. Is
Some
that how it
places
would
had a
be?
cover. Some places had a minimum.
And you would order.
But we didn't do that a lot.
No.
We didn't do that a lot because it wasn't expensive. We'd go to the movies. We would take walks. We did a lot of walking. We would walk to Evanston from Glenlake.
Nice one.
Back. We'd walk up Wilson Avenue on the other drive. We just walked and talked. That's mainly what we did. And we played tennis, in the daytimes and on the weekends. Road bikes. I don't know, are those the things people do today?
Were the ice cream shops like you see where they would dance too? Did they have
Oh,
those?
yes, we'd go out to, there was certain places out in the suburbs, TikToks.
What was that?
They had a jukebox, and you could buy drinks and burgers and things like that, and dance. And it was fun. I forgot about that place.
So you need a car to go out there.
Well, he could take his father's car when his father was in town, when Grandparent was in town. He was able to.
How did Dad learn to drive? Did his father teach you?
I think he probably was born knowing how to drive.
Did he ever take the car out before he could drive? You know?
Before what? Before he could drive?
Yeah, before he could get a license.
No, he had his license when I knew him. He was 16. Oh, he must have been 16, not 15. I might have been 15.
So when you met, he was driving.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, he drove Edie to Wisconsin. to the train to go to Wisconsin, but right at the beginning of our, she stood up and wanted to know if anybody had a car that would take her to the train. And he volunteered because he said he knew she was my friend. This was a good way to get to know me. Then they came. Jerry and his, when my parents were home, Jerry had his friends over, football friends, playing poker or cards or something. And Dad and a couple of his friends came up. They wanted to take me for a ride, Edie and myself for a ride. And they quizzed them, found out they were football players too, and then when they found that out, it was like a camaraderie, you know. They were okay. We could go. We went.
So you didn't need your parents' permission for
Well,
everything?
Jerry was home.
When he was in
I had to
charge,
ask him
then.
if I could go. I didn't have to ask him, I just did. I wanted to let him know where I was gonna go. He would let me know if I could. And that's how it was. We were pretty much free to do, I think they trusted us. We could just, you know, we weren't wild kids, I guess. We didn't do things.
So you didn't have curfews? You
We
came
didn't
home
have a
when you-
lot of discipline problems or anything like that. There was a lot of talking when we were. So times were different. Times were easier, much easier.
Mhm. So during the war, was Grandpa an air raid warden? Did he do
Yes,
that?
he was. He was a block captain.
So what did he do? What did that mean?
That he went to meetings. They watched, I think.
Did you have blackout shades?
I think, no, but we had to keep the shades closed at certain times, like tests. You know, but Chicago was very secure in the middle of the country. The whole country was secure as far as we were concerned. But
You
they
didn't
still-
notice anything else different that you had to do?
Rationing, there was a lot of rationing. That I remember. But it didn't affect me, you know, how young people are.
So Grandma would get coupon books, is that what it was?
Yes, ration books. And then after we were married, we were out of town. And I remember Grandma sending me a ration book for ration stamps for shoes. I must have been frantic for a pair of shoes. I can't imagine you.
So Dan enlisted after high school, or what
Yeah,
happened?
well, he was going to be drafted, yes, so he enlisted instead.
Did he go to
He went
college?
to college for 1 year. And then he went into the Army, and then he transferred to the Air Corps.
And when did you know you were going to be engaged? Or did you know?
Engaged, you know, I remember being engaged, but I can't tell you when it was.
You can't? You don't remember how
Isn't
he
that awful? I
asked you
should
to
have a
get
date
married?
and know exactly what happened and when. I believe I was at his parents' house, and he gave me the ring, and we were in another room.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you surprised, or were you expecting
I
it?
didn't expect a ring, no, but I did expect to get married. I wanted to get married. I didn't care if we had a big wedding or no wedding.
But you talked about it, yeah.
And he was in the service at the time. Yes. And he was in on furlough. That's what it was. He was in on furlough. And on another furlough, he came in, and Grandma Ann and I met him at the train because he was 20. He wasn't old enough to get a marriage license without his mother signing for him.
It really? You couldn't do that?
So the two of us met him at the train and dragged him down to the license bureau. And another thing about that weekend, before this all happened, we were planning a wedding around this time. It's May 30th. It was Memorial Day, 1944. And I was working, and I had many conversations with Grandma on the phone about when the wedding would be. This was on a Tuesday, and Dad was supposed to come in that weekend, you know, the Friday before. And I wanted the wedding on Saturday. And Grandma said she just couldn't pull it together, you know, it was back and forth. She couldn't we just wait till Tuesday? That was a holiday. Everybody would be off. They would be able to come. It was going to be a wedding at home. Okay, do what you want. As it turned out, Dad didn't come in till Sunday. Or Monday. It must have been Monday, because we had to go down, get tests, and
That worked out?
yeah, just made it.
So you had a wedding at home, was that nice?
Yes, it was lovely.
And how did you walk down the aisle? What did
From
you...
next door, I walked with my father from our neighbor's house was across the hall. I suppose I got dressed over there, and then we walked in.
Did
and-
somebody play the piano?
Yes. I think it was my friend Edie played the piano, yes. And there was a whoopee in the sun parlor, and they had taken all the furniture out and gotten chairs, rented chairs. And as we're walking down, Grandpa's saying, you don't have to go through with this, you know, you can always get out of it. It's never too late. And I'm pinching his arm to keep from laughing. It's funny.
Were you nervous? Do you remember being nervous?
Only because I'm talking to me like that. No, I don't. I was just anxious to get married.
Yeah. And where did you get your wedding gown from?
The way Frances Heffernan shop. She supplied the wedding dress. It was,
And that was
Beautiful
quick,
dress.
so you got it quickly?
well, we must have planned it knowing he was going to get a furlough. So say, give me a couple of months maybe.
Mm-hmm.
We were planning it for a couple of months, planning.
And did you have a dinner? Did you have, was it cake and?
It was a sweet table.
Sweet table.
Mhm. And the immediate the family was there, not the extended family. Wow, that was
had
a
to be a
big
lot.
one.
That had to be a lot.
They had a lot of brothers and aunts and uncles. I was very fortunate. to
And
have
everybody
a lot of
came?
aunts and uncles, well,
You had a big crowd.
and friends. You know.
Yeah.
So it was amazing, all those people in that apartment, isn't it? When you think about that. It was lovely.
Did you have any kind of a
Then we got in
honeymoon?
a taxi cab and went to the Georgian Hotel in Evanston for our honeymoon.
Oh.
And we stayed in Evanston because Dad was in on furlough. See how we were? We were thinking about his parents too. That they wouldn't get a chance to see him if we went away.
Oh.
And we were going away, you know, after he got settled. I was going to meet him out in Idaho.
Oh, you
So
knew
we would
that.
be gone, so we stayed near the house, you know, so that he could visit with his family. It was nice.
It was.
Mhm.
Then how soon after did you go out there?
It wasn't very long. It was in Boise. He was stationed in Mountain Home, Idaho, which was a little town outside of Boise. And I was supposed to meet him in Boise. He was going to meet me at the train. And so I figured when I got to Mountain Home, I was going to go and fix myself up and all that stuff. So the train pulls into the Mountain Home station, and there he is. And he jumps on the train. He held up the train while the porter had to get my bags and get me off there. Instead of meeting me in Boise, he decided he would meet me in Mountain Home.
He
And I had
changed.
high heels on, you know. I can remember them, blue suede shoes, maybe. And we walked on stones all the way back to the camp.
How far was
A
it?
long walk. And it was a very tiny little town, you know, where the train pulled in, and across the street were these cafes. And we lived in tar paper shacks. There were sheep outside the windows. It was beautiful. I was having a wonderful time. I really was. I mean, I didn't see all of this. It was fun for me. I loved it.
Did you have your own place?
We had we had a room, and I thought, with a small, you know, like a 3/4 bed. And in the morning, you could hear all the doors opening and all the soldiers going to the station. I mean, to their planes, for duty, to be on duty. And then we had friends there. I remember bringing them back to the room. We were sitting around talking, and there's a knock on the door. And I opened the door, and the woman said, I thought I heard men's voices in here. And I said, you did. There are husbands. She says, this is the single girls' dorm you're living. There are no men allowed in here.
But they all stayed at night and then left.
He couldn't get a place, and he didn't tell me. So from then on, I was there every day trying to find out when a room would be available, you know, for...
Did you ever get one?
Yes, we did. Right after that.
And then
With a nice big room with a double bed.
did you ever wonder why you had such a small place?
No.
No.
I'm just naive. I didn't wonder anything.
Then where did you go after that?
You know, different women weren't. Well, women probably weren't. I was.
No, I did a lot work.
You know. Then what did...
Where did you go after that?
I
What
went
was the
back
next?
home and he went, no, that was the first one. Oh, then we went to Oklahoma City after that. That was it.
Any memories about that?
Oh, yes, we lived in a house with a lovely couple. And they had a little baby. Yes, that was a fun time. And then he went overseas from there.
And then you went back.
I came home and that was the same day my grandmother passed away. You know, when I left Dad, I couldn't stop crying then either.
So he went directly.
Time out. Yeah. So one of our friends took me to the airport. There was no airport. Took me to the train station. And I had a ride home. I just couldn't stop crying. Really nice. I think I sat next to a soldier. He's so sweet. He wanted to bring me food and be nice to me. They were really nice. I just couldn't help myself. I was just miserable. And then Aunt May and Uncle Marsh and Grandpa met me at the train. And in the cab, and in the car going home, Grandpa gently told me about Grandma passing away.
And she
The
died.
funeral was the next day. So I'm glad I was there for that. So then I went to work and wrote letters every day.
Did you have trouble getting a job?
Oh no,
No.
I had gone to business college. Yeah, I would answer ads in the newspaper. Just go, you know.
Where did you work? Do you
I
remember?
worked. When I got married, I was working for an insurance company, the Insurance Exchange Building, for the vice president of the boiler and machinery department. And when I came back, then I looked for another job. I worked for, I can't remember, I think it was another insurance company on LaSalle Street. Oh yes, it was. Yes, I remember that. Then I became friendly with the girls in the office. We became friends. Another stage of life.
What did Grandpa do for a living?
He was in the foot art support business. Boy.
Was that his first job?
Orthotics today. Would he be making it, huh?
Was that his first job?
That wasn't a job. I think he was in business with his brothers, Saperston Laboratories.
Did they open it themselves?
Uh-huh. And, who else?
I remember going in there as a child and smelling the leather. You
Yes,
know,
that
every
was
time I
his-
smell leather, I think about his
a unique
place.
smell.
Yeah.
Well, that's, he went in for himself then. He left them and went on his own. And then Dad worked there. When he came home, he worked for him for a while. And then he went into the, design business. Worked for Sam Haskell, who happened to be a friend of Uncle Jerry's.
Now, did he come
That's where
home
he got
much
his education.
during being overseas? When he was overseas, did he
Didn't
get
come
to?
home at all until
He
he
did.
came
There
home.
were no leaves.
He had to get so many points flying before he could come.
So where did he go first? Where was he shipped first?
He was staying in the south. Came home in February or March of 6:46. Hi, Kenny. Will you excuse me while I go let Joel over? We can't stand to see him standing at the door. Come in, Kenny. You're welcome. Okay, Jilly. What else do you want to know, baby? Jilly, baby, what else do you want to know? I'm trying to keep this going, and I have nothing to say. Why don't we another day?